What we're really focusing on today, guys, is we're looking at what it means to be a function or not. And so we really want to make sure we understand or have a good understanding of kind of what this idea of a function actually is. Trying to get rid of this blue line here that's still there. I'll put it off to the side, I guess. But when we look at a function, there's several things that we have to make sure we're able to identify. And so we're going to start with just a little bit of vocabulary, even though it's not going to make or break you if we don't really know the vocab. So the vocab basically helps us understand the difference between a couple different things. So a relation is any of this stuff. It can be points, it can be a line, it can be a mapping. Basically, we have lots of different things. It's just telling you how one thing is related to another. So lots of things can be a relation. But in order to be a function, you have to pass a certain criteria. You have to pass a certain criteria. That basically means that an x, okay, a single x, an x value can only be mapped to one, that's a one y value. That might not make sense right now, but we're going to get into it today to really make sure that is clear. But a function, all right, not all relations are functions. Some relations are not functions. But if it passes a particular test, then it can be a function. The domain, really important that we understand, those are just your x values. We're going to get into further detail there. The range is going to be your y values. And then the vertical line test, we'll talk about this one a little bit later. But the vertical line test is when we look, it can only touch the vertical line once. Only touch once, one time. Okay? So let's jump in real fast using that vertical line test. You'll see this is why I had that blue line here. Because in this particular example, we have these three dots right here. And if you draw a vertical line, it hits those three dots all at the same time, which actually means that we fail the vertical line test. This does not pass our vertical line test. It means that our vertical line is touching more than once. So this is not a function. This is not a function. And why? Because it touches, in this case, touches the line three times, right? Touches three times, not just once. So that fails our vertical line test. So that's on a graph. If you ever have a graph, the way you test it out is by saying draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph, and if it touches those points more than once, it's not a function. This middle one's a little bit different. This is called a mapping. And the way I want you to understand a mapping is that your inputs, these are aka your x values, these are your y values, your outputs. Your inputs, like we said before, can only be mapped to one y value. So take this first one for example. -1 is mapped to +1. +5 is mapped to +6. Now, you might look at these middle arrows and say, well, is that going to be bad? Is that a problem? But it's not, because the 2 is mapped to the 4 and the 3 is mapped to the 4. And that's okay, because the 2 is only mapped one place and the 3 is only mapped one place. So this is a function. This is a function, right? Because every x is only mapped to one y value. So as long as you're only mapped to one y value, then it's a function. We'll look at some examples in a second that are not. The next one, your third one here off to the side, is a table. And this is honestly the easiest one, because when you look at your x values, all you care about is your x values. You actually don't care one bit about your y's. We don't even care. And when we look at our x values, we actually have some repetition. The ones repeat themselves. And so because the ones repeat themselves, this is not a function. Since your x repeats, this is not a function. So that's our first beginning part here, is to really determine whether something is a function or not.